Oh, what's going on, people? I am Dukedobbins, FTW, and I want to make a prediction for those of you looking at this game and trying to decide whether or not you should get involved with it. And that is that by March of next year, everyone will be pissed off at Black Ops 4 multiplayer. We'll see what happens with Battle Royale and Zombies, but the multiplayer will follow a trend we've seen with most COD games in the last 7 years. Best case scenario, it doesn't shit the bed like Infinite Warfare, maybe it gets its honeymoon period. But eventually, they'll turn on it, because COD fans eat their wounded. It's not that there's no fun to be had in this game, it's just that the arena multiplayer has obviously made a critical mistake that makes me wonder if the devs even understand their player base or what has made COD games fun in the past. And that's that they are still trying to turn this into a competitive shooter without letting go of the traditional COD mechanics that have defined it. We had heard rumors that this game was originally intended to emulate Overwatch. Those leaks were at least partially corroborated by YouTuber Hutch, who has said that the devs confirmed to him that the maps were originally designed for wall running, which is something those leaks described. And despite widespread publication, those leaks have yet to be denied by Treyarch. Also, Vonderhaar basically confirmed the reboot aspect of those leaks in a tweet that has since been deleted. And the game clearly has elements and mechanics meant to make it play like competitive titles such as Overwatch or Rainbow Six Siege. You can only have one of each hero on a team. Their primary mode now limits the amount of lives your team gets. They've taken away auto-regenerative health because they want you to try hard, longer times to kill, and there are now distinct tank and support roles. And we know that the original build was allegedly even more like Overwatch and didn't even have kill streaks in fact, but was scrapped in just the last few months because playtesters didn't like it. Activision has been trying to make COD a staple of the competitive scene for some time. They've invested heavily in MLG tournaments, they've done ranked playlists, and of course skill-based matchmaking. But despite all that, they've still been overshadowed by younger and often less commercially successful games like Siege, Overwatch, CSGO, and really just about every other competitive shooter. You can understand why COD would want to be more like those games. Their intense competitive scenes have earned them long-term loyal fan bases who years later still play the games regularly, not to mention vast amounts of free publicity from the tournaments. I saw Overwatch on frickin' basic cable the other day, which I think is a pretty momentous step forward for esports. But it was some knockoff Disney channel that looked like it was for preschoolers, so still a ways to go. But there's a reason that skill-based matchmaking and competitive ranking systems are super popular in almost every game. Siege, Rocket League, Overwatch, League of Legends, Halo, CSGO, and yet we're the single most hated system ever put into Call of Duty. In those other games, if you're not trying hard enough, you get reported for throwing. In Call of Duty, if you try too hard, you get flamed for being a tryhard. It is a fundamentally different kind of game and always has been, and it lacks the key fundamentals that make those other games interesting to play and watch in a competitive setting. The games that it looks like Black Ops 4 tried to emulate this year, Siege and Overwatch, are still very fun to play when you are struggling or even losing. In fact, they're more fun to play when the match is a highly competitive struggle as opposed to just shitting on the enemy. But COD is still the exact opposite. It is not very fun to go negative or 1-for-1 in this game. In the clips you see of me in this video, I'm having fun, but that's because I'm shitting in people's mouths. Now, what makes COD so different? What is lacking? A popular concept being discussed at major game dev conferences these days is flow. It's a psychological concept, first discovered by Michalia Csikszentmihalyi, who described it as, and I quote, "the satisfying, exhilarating feeling of creative accomplishment and heightened functioning that gives us intense, optimistic engagement with the world around us. We are completely activated as human beings." The phenomenon is sometimes referred to as being in the zone. The easiest to understand example of a flow state of mind that I've read about is Tetris, the best-selling game of all time. What's funny about Tetris is that it's impossible to win. You go into every game knowing you're going to lose. But what makes it so fun is that you always achieve a state of flow, which happens when the blocks start falling so fast that you're forced to be 100% engaged with the activity, right? It requires all your mental ability. And if somebody so much as says your name and you look away, you'll lose. This is flow, full mental activation and engagement. And it's very fun for us. We enjoy it. Our pulse quickens, our palms sweat, and we feel alive. And different people will hit it at different times depending on their skill level, but because Tetris is never ending, everyone will hit it sooner or later. And this is something game devs are trying more and more to get in their games. Dr. Jane McGonigal, who's written several books on gamer psychology, regularly speaks at game dev forums, and in her book, Reality is Broken, she mentions that it's not uncommon to walk into a development studio and see offices for behavior psychologists and neurologists, because they're trying to give you that flow, baby. They want to make you flow everywhere. But while other competitive titles are having a lot of success at providing flow, COD is not. The beauty of traditional competitive ranking systems is that they work kind of like Tetris. You're constantly climbing to achieve higher and higher scores, and it gets harder and harder as you climb until eventually you're at your peak, and every match requires your full mental engagement to keep climbing. And thus, in every match you play at that level, you achieve flow, because it's like playing Tetris at the highest difficulty you've hit, right? But COD can't have that, because SBMM has been such a controversy in the past, so that by itself makes it seem a bit pointless to be modeling the game on other highly competitive titles. But even if it did have that kind of ranking system, it still wouldn't provide flow states in the way that other games are able to, which is of course why skill-based matchmaking was such a disaster in the first place, because COD lacks the depth necessary to push your mind to the levels of engagement necessary for flow. That's right, I am telling you right now with a straight face that fucking Tetris has more depth than COD. In competitive titles like Overwatch and League of Legends, every fight requires your absolute attention because there are so many factors and changing variables going on at any given moment. So much information you have to assess and so many decisions you have to be making at a breakneck pace based on that information. Games like Siege and CSGO require your absolute focus for aiming, positioning, and reaction times. They make you fucking think, and that's how you achieve a flow state. But you're not going to get that in COD. Look, I like that Black Ops 4 has, distinct support and tank class roles. I like many of the hero ability mechanics they've included that add a layer of depth, potential for teamwork to the game. The time to kill increase is a welcome change, but these aren't going to go far enough while the rest of the game remains so simplistic. The guns all have very little recoil. The recoil they do have rarely makes any kind of difference because the maps are so small that your gunfights almost never take place at a distance where your sights will bounce off enemy character models or that would require you to pop fire. Not to mention, the game is primarily played on consoles which have fat aim assists. Something like CSGO, despite its similarities, is considered much more competitive than COD, and one of the big reasons is you can't ADS with every weapon, so a lot more strategy goes into choosing your weapon loadout, and a lot more focus and aim is required to outgun your opponents. But COD is really more a game of hide and seek or virtual laser tag, because once you've seen them, they're done. What really matters most is who sees who first. And to an extent, that's how COD was originally conceived. It's always been a twitch shooter, and it's always supposed to be casual. But when you look at Treyarch's first big hit, World at War, notice how different the maps were back then. Asymmetrical, filled with defilade foliage and a wide variety of uneven cover. They were much larger and much more detailed, with complex structures, laning patterns, power positions, and choke points. Today's maps are all perfectly symmetrical, very small. Every piece of cover is polygonic and does not provide a distinct advantage depending on which side of it you're on. There aren't really power positions or choke points anymore, and they all strictly adhere to the exact same 3-lane design. I didn't even feel like I needed to learn the maps in this beta because if you've played COD before, you basically already knew them by heart. And there were technically like 5 maps in the beta, but it really felt like one map. The differences were mostly aesthetic. I did not ever feel like there were significant changes in the nature of the encounters you were getting in or the viable playstyles and loadouts you used from map to map. My favorite Call of Duty video of all time was a dual commentary between OG commentators Hutch and Wings of Redemption, debating the merits of rushing versus defensive playstyles in COD respectively. At one point, arguing that defensive playstyles make the game more interesting, Wings said,
"Alright, picture this. Picture the game is a flat field, no hills. There's maybe a couple walls that are glass so you can see right through to see the campers, alright? Everybody would run, either the 1887s or the UMP, and they would just run and fire from the hip. It'd be cool for like a week. But after that, you lose the surprise element of the game. You lose the tactical element of the game. And after a while, the game would burn out at a much quicker pace. This is why people haven't designed first-person shooters with, lackluster environments. And they kind of promote camping. Like these cars, everything is designed so you have a point to help protect yourself against other flanks.
Wings basically predicted the future of COD in that video. The walls aren't see-through, but they've watered down the environment to the point that it really is just a flat surface with some walls. And the same 3 lanes every time. And people aren't running only 2 weapons and firing from the hip, but regardless of what weapon you do use, you're basically locked into a single playstyle like the one he describes, where you run around like a chicken with your head cut off. Even when you snipe, this is proof that you can only use one playstyle in this game. You have to quickscope, okay? Used to be you could quickscope or do it traditionally, but now quickscoping is the only viable option. In maps this small, where everyone has unlimited sprint and essentially recoilless weapons, traditional sniping is never going to be anything more than a throw playstyle, a gimmick, because it doesn't matter what loadout you run, you have to play that one playstyle. And when you have such watered down gunplay on top of the watered down maps, the result is a game that doesn't ever require you to think that much. And even if you do put a bunch of focus and thought into it, it's not going to change much. Tiny maps, unlimited sprint, instant respawns, built-in motion sensors on every player. No matter how good you are, how hard you try, at least every 30 seconds somebody's going to randomly see you before you see them, and that's all it takes for you to die. They have this shit down to a science, as if we are rats in a maze. They know how often they want people getting kills and getting killed themselves, and they design the game around that standard. You are not in control. This fucking game is the Matrix. When you struggle in most competitive titles, you achieve flow. When you struggle in COD, there's nothing but emptiness and frustration. COD is like playing Tetris, but the speed never really increases, and every now and then, a fat vertical row of blocks drops instantly and gives you an unavoidable loss. They're dressing it up like these competitive titles, but it's like just because you look like a skater and you walk around with a skateboard doesn't mean you know how to fucking skate. And so what I predict will happen is what always happens, is that people who buy the game may have some fun on it, but ultimately, once the novelty wears off, it won't be substantive enough to keep you mentally engaged in the same way other competitive titles do. and then people will tire of it quickly, especially if they played a lot of COD like everyone has. And at a certain point, I suspect around February, March, people are going to realize that between the retail price and the Black Ops Pass, if they got that far, they're going to have dropped a shit ton of money on a game that they probably won't get as many hours of as they did free titles like Fortnite, or titles with free DLC like Overwatch, or just less expensive titles like PUBG and Rocket League, and then they will be pissed off, and toxic rage will consume the online COD community, and then the cycle will repeat, and then we can start hyping Infinite Warfare 2. Lastly, before y'all go, I wanted to quickly announce I'm launching a Discord. Basically because I want an unlimited supply of cool people I can hit up for the various games I play, because I'm tired of not having a fucking wingman. Also, if you have tight clips you want to share for any of the games I usually upload, you should share them there, and clips, I can get them into a video as long as they're high enough quality. Also, if you ever have interesting bits of gaming news you think I should know about, or commentary ideas or whatever, you can tell me about it there. And on top of that, I'm also relaunching my Patreon. It'll be primarily used for buying new games and gaming equipment. I haven't hoarded out too much in the past because I didn't really need it, but I actually recently had a breakup with my girlfriend the last 10 years. And not that you should donate out of pity, I had it coming, but I'd forgotten how expensive life can be when you don't get to split all your costs with somebody. So I've fallen on some tight times, and any donation would really help a lot. If you do donate, you will get special access to an exclusive little chat room in my Discord where you will get to see the videos early. I upload on weekends, but a lot of the time I'll have a vid finished a few days earlier in the week, so you can see them as soon as they're up and critique them and give a bit of feedback, and maybe I can make changes to them based on that. You can be my beta testers. I know I used this thing like a few years back, and they've been inactive for long stretches of period of time in between then and now. If you've ever donated to it and you're not donating to it now, I will get you access to that, the special perks and stuff, regardless of if you're donating now. If you're donating in the past, just email me your username. And also, if I ever get my shit worked out on Twitch, all the Twitch stuff, I don't know what it is, flair and emotes and all that, you'll get access to that if you've donated on the Patreon. So both these things will give people a chance, I hope, to sort of play a little part in shaping the channel if you're into that kind of thing. And if you're not, no worries, totally dig it. I love you all. Thanks for watching. Please remember to rate. This is Batman signing out.